Graham, honey, where's your holiday spirit? In the refrigerator. I'm getting a beer. We're talking just the 10 of us. Hit it. It was 1988. Salt and Peppa pushed it. Van Damme starred in Bloodsport. 13% of Americans surveyed thought the moon was made of cheese. And a Growing Pains spinoff reminded us about selflessness at Christmastide. I'm your host, Jerry D, with another episode of Totally Rad Christmas, the podcast that talks all things Christmas in the 80s. Toys, movies, specials, music, and fads. If it was gnarly during Christmas in the 80s, we got it covered. Now, before I introduce my guest, it's time for the 80s word of the day. As always, this comes from the Dictionary of 1980s Slang by Rick Carlisle. Today's word is scuzzbag. Noun, a slightly less distasteful version of scumbag. Also, scuzzball or scuzzbucket. Use it all the time. Now, joining me is a very special guest. It's the Christmas aficionado, Joe. Joe, how's it going?
Good, Jerry. How are you?
I'm good. We're getting deeper into the season, and I work at a Christmas store, so it's crazy. But other than that, I'm good.
I can only imagine that this is your busy time of the year.
Yes, sir. Yeah, so I'm on 6 days a week now. We work from about 7:30ish to about 6:30ish. So yeah, it's time. It's time to slow down, I guess, but can't do it.
Your job is very similar to this little thing that I'm doing on my own, where you work at a Christmas store all year long, I assume.
I do, yep.
Mm-hmm. And I do a website all year long about Christmas, and so trying to find people who have interest, maybe in like March, might be tough, but
yeah.
But this is my busy time of the year as well.
Yeah, I hear you. You know, we're here to talk just the 10 of us. What can I say? I'm doing it the best I can. Leaning on nobody but me. Oh, seeing it from where I stand. Nothing comes easy. Oh, I'm always bringing home second place. Like, what do you remember about just the 10 of us?
Oh, well, just the 10 of us was probably one of my favorite, and it wasn't actually technically a TGIF show until 1989.
Right.
But it was the one that stood out to me for the longest time, mostly because the humor was different than anything else that was showing on ABC at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Like Full House is just I love Full House, but after a while it was just everything ended happily. Right. There was no real kind of, I don't want to say crude humor, but just the 10 of us hit that. They would say things and have a lot of innuendos that obviously would go over kids' heads, but parents would find funny. And I was 13 at the time of this episode airing, so I caught on to all those. And I think there's part of me that really, latched on to that. And plus, it was just funny.
Yeah.
And I love Growing Pains, and it was, that was like the first time I ever saw like a spinoff, or at least understood it. I mean, it was like it kind of blows your mind that it's like, oh, they took a character from Growing Pains and started the new show without Kirk Cameron, and that was kind of cool. And then plus it was, like I said, it was really funny, and this episode is actually one of the most memorable Christmas ones from the 80s that I remember. So when we were talking about, what show we're going to do, I was like, well, this one stands out to me, but I don't know how many people actually remember this series as much as maybe you and I do. And I think that's the problem. Like because it never came on DVD. No. It's not on streaming. If you do have copies of it, like I do, you found them somewhere, and they're really bad recordings of it,
Right.
and it still has some commercials in it, which is kind of fun. But there was never anything. There was no real like box set you could buy.
Right.
That's the thing that I miss.
Yeah, nothing remastered. So you're right. Like that, I watched this off of YouTube, and it was pretty grainy, and the sound quality wasn't great. In fact, there's kind of like a hiss on top, so I'm gonna have my work cut out for me when it's time to edit this thing, you know. But is yeah, so I'm right there with you. This is one that I remember watching all the time because I think USA like ended up buying the syndication rights and would show it like nonstop throughout at least the mid '90s,
Mhm,
if not later. And so I remembered this one just being on, and of course, I remember Heather Langenkamp from Nightmare on Elm Street. So
mhm,
seeing her play that role as like almost very similar because Nancy was also a little more sweet, but
yeah,
it is kind of very different as well. She's the much more like the real pious, the one that's put together most out of all the oldest daughters. But you're right, this one has a ton of more adult humor
mhm,
that a lot of those others were missing. Full House, Perfect Strangers had some, but it was still had enough of the like goofy screwball comedy, slapstick humor that it kind of balances it out. This one, I think, was more adult than anything else. And yet at
mhm,
the same time, it had a lot of heart and it really could just hit you right in the feels, as the kids say, you know, just because they kind of focused on the teenagers.
mhm. Yeah, no, definitely. And just to touch on the Nightmare on Elm Street, only because there's two others that actually showed up in these movies. Joanne Willett, who played Connie, was in part two, Freddy's Revenge. And then Brooke Thesis, who plays Wendy in Just the Ten of Us, was in part four, The Dream Master. So they had three different actresses all in Nightmare on Elm Streets, before, I, I guess it was before the show hit.
Right.
Uh, and the first episode, I don't know if you remember this or not, but they actually say when they look at like the house, they said looks like it's a Nightmare on Elm Street or something like that. It was like they referenced that movie, and I don't know if that was just dumb luck that they said that, or it was actually something that they just said, you know what, let's throw that in there.
I mean,
But
I feel like that was an improv line that just kind of fit, right? Like something someone
yeah,
said. But you never know. They might have after they've cast someone like, okay, rework this really quickly. You never can tell with these, especially because they don't take they never really took like very serious notes on what they were doing in this era. A lot of it was just
oh
kind of
yeah.
shot and forget it, stored away somewhere. So yeah, it's kind of a shame, but I think you're right. I think that's probably just something that was just thrown in there. Now, this premiered in 1988. I think the first season was only like 4 or 5 episodes long, if I recall correctly.
4 episodes.
4 episodes, yeah, and they just tried their best to see if it was going to hit, and then when it hit, they went ahead and programmed it in, which I think was smart. And I remember later on it was after Growing Pains as well. In fact, I think after this episode, they even say we're moving to our new time slot, on Wednesday nights after Growing Pains.
Next week, we're moving to a new night and time.
It's very rare for us to use the full body search.
Just the 10 of us moving to Wednesday right after Growing Pains.
Which actually makes a lot of sense if it's a spinoff.
Yeah. Well, this episode, and I did my research only because, and I kind of knew that it was probably the same night, but it's aired on December 16th in 1988.
88, right?
It was a Friday night, and it aired last out of three of all the other shows that were happening. It had Perfect Strangers, which was a Christmas episode, and I don't remember. I kind of remember this one. It's called The Gift of
Of the
the
Meepiat.
Meepiat. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for showing me how to say that word. And so that in that episode, Mr. Gorpley is it was like a retelling of Christmas Carol of Mr. Gorpley. Full House, our very first Christmas show, aired that same night.
Yep,
So
another good one.
so the very first Full House Christmas one where they got stuck at the airport with Boss Hogg as Santa.
As Santa, yeah.
Yeah. And then Mr. Belvedere was that night, and it was the episode called Homeless, which I don't think has anything to do with Christmas, and it's just Heather, the daughter, takes in a homeless man in their attic.
Mm.
I don't remember that
I don't remember that one at all. Yeah. No.
but I remember all the other ones, and I clearly remember this episode.
Right on. Yeah, so I only vaguely recalled this particular episode. Like there were bits and pieces that stuck out in my mind. Like I remember him getting the organ.
Mhm.
I remember the car trouble. And the one thing that I always remembered was when Coach Dwayne like gives him a kiss on the cheek. But like
Yes.
other than that, I didn't remember very many other specifics at all. And so it was a real treat to see this and dive into this episode again because it was like all this stuff was kind of just being refreshed in my brain, just just coming to the top.
Is this the first time you've watched it in a while?
In a while, yeah, it had been a long time since I'd seen it. Doing research for the show unfortunately keeps me watching all sorts of things or listening or reading or whatever I'm doing for that week or that particular season. So I don't get to just watch a lot of my usuals. And so this has been quite a while since I'd seen this one. I think probably since the mid 90s. I don't think I'd
Oh
revisited it
wow.
since then. Yeah. So it's been a bit.
Yeah, I mean, it got lost, obviously, and it
Right.
hadn't been shown on TV in a long time.
Right.
And only until people started sharing it on YouTube and stuff. I think I probably found it about 6 years ago again.
Oh, nice.
And so I was like, oh, great. It's like I'm gonna rewatch these. And then since then I've tried to keep it, reoccurring. I love any Christmas TV episode. I will watch that over and over again.
Right.
And this is actually probably in my top 50. Like if I had to choose a top 50 of Christmas episodes, this would definitely be in it. I don't know what the order exactly would be, but it's one of my favorites.
That's a long list, and so I don't know I don't even know if I could fill out a list like that, or they'd all be from the 80s, I think, just because that's what I remember most. But but yeah, I agree. I really enjoyed this one. It was sweet. Because I'm Catholic, it kind of added a little extra as
Oh,
well. So it's
yeah, the Catholic guilt.
huge, huge Catholic family there. So good for him. But I'm nowhere near that big. I got 3 kids, that's about it. That's where I stop. But no, I mean, this one, there's something really just charming and very special about it that I think we don't get in a lot of TV episodes in general. So I really enjoyed it, and we can dive into it.
Yep, why don't we dive into it?
Yeah, it's really it's a good one here. So if you want to nutshell it, it's like a spin almost on the Gift of the Magi, but not
Yes.
really. Just a little bit here and there.
I was trying to think whether or not you could consider it because
Right,
it's got it's got the I sacrifice something that I love to give it to somebody else, but
right.
that doesn't isn't reciprocated by that same person. So
Yeah, yeah.
but we could say it is.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say it's a spin or a variation
Yes.
on a theme. There you go. I'm a musician, so it's a variation on a theme. That's all. But okay, so if you want to nutshell it, Graham or Coach, he is trying to buy his wife an organ when his car breaks down, and he has to sell it in order to not have to spend so much money. And the girls, spoiler alert, end up trying to save it for him. So that's
Yeah.
like the nutshelled version. But this this is really cool. So it starts off with Graham and the oldest daughter,
Marie.
Heather. I keep wanting to call her Heather. I'm so bad. Marie, that's her name. So Graham and Marie are out purchasing the organ from and I didn't know this was a thing, but almost from like a sleazy sidewalk organ salesman. That's what it seemed like.
Yeah, he basically says that he repossessed the organ from the Little Sisters of the Poor, and which then becomes Maria's outraged that he would do that. But Coach kind of says, "Well, he got a good deal on it,
Yeah.
so we'll let it go."
But he even asks now, if this doesn't work out, I can return it. And the guy's like, yeah, you can get all your $500 back. 600. Yeah, that's what I meant. And so even then he's acting a little shady.
Yes.
Oh, Daddy! When Mom gets us on Christmas, she's gonna realize that your years together have not been in vain.
Marie, are you sure this is the kind she plays in church?
It is exactly the same.
All right, guys, load it up. Well, wait a minute. Are you absolutely sure? Hey, let me cut through some of that buyer's remorse that's bubbling up inside of you. You said you wanted a church organ for the missus. Well, this baby was repossessed directly from the Little Sisters of the Poor.
What?
That's why they call them the Little Sisters of the Poor. Oh, wait a minute, we'll put it down. Look, if for some reason she doesn't like it, I'd get my money back, right? Yeah, the whole 500. It was 600. My mistake. All right, load it up. You heard the man.
But so they get it all loaded up. They're so excited because the organ is a gift for his wife, Elizabeth, who is the church musician and has always wanted her own organ. Of course, they're a huge family. There's 10 of them, and living on a Catholic school teacher's salary you got to really make a dime stretch,
Yes.
So she's never had one. So he's very excited to give her one.
Yep.
But as they're about to take off, we get the I guess the crux of the episode here, where his car or van, whatever it is, decides not to work. And
Yep.
so it just has trouble starting, and so he has to get a mechanic. But it's kind of a cool seg, the way that he tries to drive off, and then it cuts straight into the theme song.
Yes. Well, even taking a step back, the mechanic that shows up, he's trying to figure out. He says it's the transmission is fine, and it just had some fluids, and the coach is like, yeah, great. And he goes, but it'll be fine until you have time for me to replace it.
Right.
And then I don't know if you recognize the guy, but and again,
I did, yeah.
Okay,
Wait, go ahead. Yeah. Go ahead.
So his name's Bill Irwin. He's an actor.
Yes.
He played multiple characters on Just the 10 of Us. So, like, if you watch that series again, you'll see him play multiple different characters. He did that on Growing Pains as well. So obviously that was kind of like a reoccurring gag that they would have like somebody play like different characters and stuff. But he was also more well known probably from When Christmas is in Home Alone.
Yes, that's right.
And yes, and he's the husband of Billy Bird. They're at the airport where Mrs. McAllister's trying to bribe them with watch and all those other things to get the plane ticket, and he just tells her to no, we're just gonna go away.
Yeah, she's got a whole shoebox full of them, dangly ones.
So anytime there's a Christmas connection outside of the series, I always, those are the things I like. Oh yeah, I know who he is.
Yeah, as soon as I saw him, I was like, hey, it's Airport Guy.
But going into the theme song,
yeah, it was a nice seg, and the theme song itself, I think, is definitely one of my favorite theme songs. It's catchy, it's peppy. It reminds me very much, which makes sense because it's a spin-off of Growing Pains, but it reminds me very much of the Growing Pains theme song as well. It's got the same kind of chordal structure. It's just, yeah, I remember this theme song. It's just one that kind of sticks in your head. What about you? Is that one that?
Well, it's kind of jumping into my most memorable moment. The theme song is definitely something, and we'll bring that up again, I'm sure. But right. That's the thing that always stood out to me is the theme song. It's catchy. It's super catchy. It's just like all those other 80s great theme songs that don't exist anymore because they just kind of. That's extra. I mean, it's like a minute and a half long. So
yeah.
It's a lot of time in television to just have a theme song, but I love it. And I think, and the visuals in that, there's a couple of scenes that they just used in every season of like Graham and Elizabeth where they're kind of like dancing and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Those things I just like when I first saw it a few years ago. And just I was like, oh yeah, that. And I clearly remember that as a kid watching these out moments, and I'm like thinking, when was that episode? Because again, who knows if I saw all the episodes at 13? Probably not. But now that I've rewatched them, you see where they cut all those things from all those different episodes.
Well, it's "Doing It the Best I Can" is the name of the song. It was sung by Bill Medley.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool as well. Of course, I remember him most. Most people would probably know him as from the Righteous Brothers. I remember him most from Dirty Dancing.
Yeah, I don't know who. I have to admit, I don't know who he is.
Okay, yeah. So, you've lost that love and feeling. It's
Oh,
probably
okay.
he's famous for singing that, but also I've had the time of my life. He sang that with Jennifer Warren.
Okay.
Warner. Oh gosh, now I can't remember. I think it's anyway, he sang that song from Dirty Dancing. So that's pretty much where like I know him first, which is
Yes.
a travesty to most people, but oh well. So
Now that you say all that, I hear his voice
yeah,
and all that. So
right. We yes, they need $500 to fix the transmission because you got to put in some new sieves, I think is what he said.
yep.
Sieve, sleeve, something like that. I'm not a car
So
guy, so I have no
yeah,
idea.
I don't either, but interesting. I was kind of curious for it what that would be in $2022.
Uh-huh.
$1,254.47.
That sounds about
So
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I looked it up, and replacing her transmission as actually that's fairly cheap. Because the average cost, and again, this is from the internet, so I'm not saying this is exactly right, but they said
Right.
anywhere 18 to 3,400 it could be the cost of the transmission. So if it actually only costs 1,200 for that giant vehicle that he has, that's pretty good.
But well, yeah, for real, because that's like a big old van or something. But
Oh,
we do get a great joke where where he's talking about how fitting it is now that they have the organ from the Little Sisters of the Poor who was repossessed, and the car won't start, and then sorry, Marie, there I go again, says the Lord moves in mysterious ways, and he says, well, at least he's moving, because their car wouldn't start. So anyway, that's just nice little dad humor that I really loved. That kind of thing is peppered throughout this whole episode and throughout the whole series, if I recall.
yes.
But so we hard cut to their family home. Mom is playing the accordion, singing "Oh Christmas Tree," and we get a nice little bit where they all kind of join in a little bit. And as they're getting ready to decorate the tree, Jr. falls and breaks all the ornaments, and they decide, well, that's okay. I read something where we can just make our own ornaments, and they constantly refer to making their own ornaments out of junk and out of garbage, which I thought was
garbage.
Out of garbage.
But I found that it fall pretty impressive for a kid.
Oh yeah, he got back up. He didn't hurt himself. Nothing.
Yeah, and I was looking to see that it's not cut, so it's clear. It's clearly him who falls.
Yeah,
and it doesn't look like there was a lot of padding there.
No, I don't think there was. By the way, Graham Jr. or JR as they usually call him, is played by Matt Shackman.
Yes.
Who has done I think he produced and directed WandaVision. I mean, he's done quite a bit. He's done like Always Sunny episodes. He's directed like Fargo episodes, Game of Thrones. I mean, he's done quite a bit of directing now and some really top projects.
Yeah, I can't remember. I think it was Kevin Smith podcast I was listening to, and he was talking to Matt, and Matt revealed that he used to be on a show, and Kevin Smith was like, "Oh, well, what show?" And he says, "Well, just the 10 of us." And it blew Kevin Smith's mind that was the same guy. And I didn't, I didn't know that was the same guy either. It's not like I look everybody up on internet
right
database. And as soon as I heard that, I was looked that up. I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, that's JR. That's the kid.
Yeah.
And he's done so much in his life since then.
Well, and I saw his name and I was like, no, that's not the same guy. It can't be the same guy. And sure enough, it's the same guy. Yep. So it's to think he went from falling down the stairs and breaking ornaments to doing one of the most critically acclaimed Marvel shows of all time.
Well, good for him.
Yeah,
good
exactly. Yeah, he won that deal. So they're going to make their own ornaments. The coach comes in. He's very upset because now he just spent all this money that he really needs to fix the van. He doesn't know what he's going to do. And we get this whole exchange where he essentially is kind of yelling at the kids and yelling at Elizabeth as well. And she has a few nice little tidbits there at him. They kind of just throw it back and forth. He's trying to explain the car situation, and she's not understanding. Well, it can't be that bad if you actually drove it here. And he's like, no, it's bad. Well, it doesn't work. He's like, but how'd you get here then?
It's he's doing the typical 80s. Oh, you women, you don't understand
You
how
don't
vehicles
understand.
work. And of course, that's where the shows start. That's where some of these shows start to date itself a little bit.
Of course,
but there is some funny moments because she really does give him a lot of crap back. I mean, it's not like she doesn't just take it. And I think those two always worked so well together.
I agree.
As wife. And I think that's what was the strongest relationship out of all of them, because the show slowly became about the girls.
Yeah, it became more about them. Yeah.
By the third season, it was like the Lubbock Babes and all that stuff, and that's when the show started going downhill for me. When it was more of the family thing, and it was and of course the dynamics of the dad and the four girls, the guys always chasing after the girls. That was always great, but the relationship between him and Elizabeth was probably the strongest part of this show that I really, really loved.
No, I completely agree. And I mean, the thing is, the show really was about, at least when it started, it was about them. It's this guy trying to support his whole family. They had another baby on the way. Later on, the little baby Melissa is born. By this episode, she's already here. But now there's 10. There's just 10 people living in this house, living off of his salary. And it's like, okay, we have these problems. I got special permission for my girls to go to this Catholic school that I'm, this all boys Catholic school that I'm teaching at. And there's problems that way. I mean, it's like this, it was just all these different things, but it kind of really was the focus on the parents. And like you said, it really started moving more towards, because didn't they have like a singing group or something? If I think I recall.
The Lubbock Babes. Yeah.
That's what it was. The Lubbock Babes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it really lost, I think, what made it special to begin with.
Yeah.
And so that's a shame. But you're right. So, she gives him stuff right back where she's like, hey, I don't have time for this. You can insult your wife, peace on earth, goodwill toward men.
Ornaments out of garbage. I mean, she even says it herself,
she does.
She gets so upset about it. So I like I said, I really enjoyed whenever it was just those two together.
Yeah. Well, there was some great lines too. Peace on earth, goodwill towards men, peace on you.
So the car won't run?
Oh no, it runs fine. It just won't go.
Well, how'd you get home?
I drove.
In the car that won't go?
Elizabeth, women don't understand mechanical things.
Honey, if you drove the car home, it can't be that bad.
Bad? The transmission has to be ripped out of the car.
It's only metal. I mean, it's not like you're losing an organ.
You know about the organ? I mean, what organ?
I mean like a heart, lungs, spleen.
Elizabeth, sometimes when I'm talking to you, I'm sorry we speak the same language.
Fine, Graham, fine. Insult your wife at Christmas. Peace on earth, goodwill toward men. Well, peace on you.
But yeah, it's good stuff. So he's thinking about taking the organ back to fix the car, but he can't do that. And the girls decide that, hey, we need to do something to kind of help him. I mean, he's saved. Well, this is where I'm not sure if he actually did it, because she just one of the daughters just embellished the story for added drama, like she said. But he saved all year round,
giving up your daily Mounds bar.
His daily Mounds bar, yeah.
Yes, and it was Connie who said that, and Wendy says she was surprised Dad would do that. And Connie says, well, I'm just making it up because the story needed some embellishment.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, yeah, okay. That's obviously it sounds like he actually eats a Mounds bar every day. I don't know if I could do that. But if he did actually give it up, it was about $1. They were, if he would have given him up, it was $1 almost back then, even then. Because I think the Mounds bars were like the big giant ones.
They were huge, I think.
Yeah. And so I think those were always a little bit more. And so he probably would have saved quite a bit of money if he did actually give that up.
Doesn't that feel like a very 80s candy bar, Mounds?
A few words about Mounds. Don't take our words for it. Mouth. Ooh, ah, for yourself.
Yeah, well, I hate them. I'm not a big Mounds Bar guy, so
Yeah.
I don't even know if I've ever tried it because it's like coconut.
There's coconut in there, yeah.
Yeah, and to me right there, I'm just like I'm out, so I wouldn't even try it. But it is. I mean, you had the commercials that you remember from the '80s.
Mhm.
I can't. I'm blanking on the what it was. It's wasn't sometimes you feel like a nut. That's something else. But anyways, I like the
I
Mounds
think that
Bar.
was Almond Joy, I think was
Almond Joy. Okay, well,
mhm.
one of the I hate Almond Joys too. So, but yeah, 80s Mounds bars were big in the 80s, and
Right.
I don't even know I mean they're still around, but I don't think people talk about that anymore.
Not so much, no, no. But of course, we get Cindy, who's kind of the ditzier one, gets confused when they're talking about organ and giving up an organ, and she volunteers to give the mom one of her own organs, and they all give her
Typical.
that
Yeah.
look. Wah,
Yeah,
wah.
she was always the dumb one, and she
Right.
always did dumb things.
Yep.
They all had
Their
like
special characteristic, yeah.
yeah, and she was known for being the dumb one.
Right.
Uh, but it always worked out well, I thought. Like they had four really the four actresses who played the daughters were really good at their roles.
I
And
agree. Yeah.
the they were all unique and they all stood out from each other. And I wasn't surprised, obviously not shocked that and ABC said, well, we should actually maybe force the episodes to be more about them than the entire family, because again, it's the
Right.
same thing that happens to all the TV shows. They see
Mhm.
the stars of who they think the stars are, and then they focus on
Looking at you, Urkel.
them. You were
But
reading my mind.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, so you're right. Marie was like I said, she was the responsible one, the real pious, like religious one. We had Cindy, who was one of the twins, I think technically, but she's just a little older. She was the real ditzy one. We have Wendy, who's like the real flirty, uh, we'll
One,
yeah,
one,
yeah,
yeah.
fun, yeah, yeah. One. We had Connie, who's kind of the like I want to say she was like the artiste, right? Like she was a little
Yeah,
more
she she was the one all the guys ignored. Um,
right,
and it wasn't like I think they just always kind of made her more plain looking. You
mm,
know, I think they kind of, they made Wendy and Cindy, all dolled up. Marie always kind of looked, like the very nice Catholic girl.
right,
And
prim and
Connie was
proper.
kind of like she was like under the shadow of the two. I don't want to say pretty ones because Connie was pretty too, but the two that they focused on as like the flirty girls.
Right,
I think she was always under their shadow.
right, yeah. So yeah, they all have their personalities. Of course, then we get the younger kids as well. But so cut to Coach is now at St. Augustine's Academy. St. Augie's is what they call it for short. And he's talking with his assistant coach, or is it his assistant or is it just another coach? I don't recall.
I think it's just another coach. I don't
Okay.
think
I think I always thought it was his assistant when I was younger, but
it could be. It's I haven't watched. It probably would have been introduced early on in the series, and so I
right.
don't really recall. But it may have been an assistant coach because they were probably all football. He was the football coach, so he was the main coach. He was probably his assistant. So we'll say assistant.
Played by Pedro Serrano himself, Dennis Haysbert.
Hats for bats.
Yeah? What's your handicap?
Keep bats warm. Gracias.
So what else has he been in? Because I'm not.
See, I remember him from Major League. He was the president in 24.
Okay.
I know he was. He's done a lot of TV, so like I recall him in Brooklyn Nine-Nine, a couple of episodes. But I think for me, what I remember him most from, but also I think he's done some commercials. Was it Allstate? I think it was Allstate commercials. But what I remember him most from was Major League. And he was,
Okay.
Serrano want to bet, that guy.
As you said, the Allstate commercial, I'm like, how did I not put two and two together? That's the
Yeah.
same guy.
And he's trying to coach is trying to explain to Dwayne, how things work and that marriage is like a sacred institution built on trust, and sometimes you have to lie to protect that trust. And he doesn't get it, so they decide to role play.
They role play and he's coach, and coach is
Coach is
Graham
Elizabeth.
is Elizabeth, and they go back and forth and do this whole thing about
Right.
How he would tell Elizabeth about the car, and he kind of exaggerates as Elizabeth a little bit, almost to the point where when he starts ranting, going on more of a rant,
Right.
pretending Elizabeth, questioning whether he spent that money on, and how he's going to just sleep on the couch because he's not sleeping with me. And of course, who walks right by as soon as he
Father
says that?
Hargis.
Father Argus, played by Frank Bonner. And I always loved this character, mostly because he always was, you always could tell, you could never tell whether or not he actually liked Coach or not.
Right.
And they always, obviously deep down he probably did, but they really played it well as like I don't want to say villain, but he was like the guy, the antagonist to Graham, where he's always trying to do something, and trying to look good for Father Hargis, who I guess
Right.
for some reason would easily fire him at any point.
Well, I mean, he makes a couple of threats in here as well too.
Well, he does, yes, and that's why I brought that up.
I wonder if it's because so if I recall, I've only vaguely remember the pilot itself. So I think this is something that I read, but if I recall, I think it was Dwayne, Coach Johnson, that actually helped. He recommended Graham to Father Hargis. So maybe that's why. Maybe it's more of like, I didn't really pick him. This was just, I'm doing this guy a favor here because he seems to like Dwayne. I mean, he even wanted to invite Dwayne to Christmas dinner at the rectory with, sister
Ethel's turkey.
Exactly. She knows how to stuff a bird.
Yeah, I mean, the series obviously started in the growing pains, and there was a whole episode where the coach was going to be fired, and Mike
Right.
and Mike
Mike and
Seaver
Carol, yeah.
were kind of trying to keep his job, but he ended up obviously losing it, because and you see even in the theme song, the start from New York to
All
LA
the way.
or to California. I guess they're not in LA, but in California. And so yeah, I mean, it was a I think you're right. I think he knew Dwayne. Dwayne recommended him for the job, and that was kind of always like the contention between the two.
Right, right. So of course, Father Hargis walks by when he's like, "You're not sleeping with me. You're sleeping on the couch," and they play it off as like a role playing bit.
Yeah,
but go ahead.
I was just gonna say yeah, he was, because he recommended that at the last faculty meeting,
right?
You should role play, which okay, I don't know if that's actually something that people do.
I've never. I was a band director for a bit, and I don't recall that being recommended at faculty meetings. But okay, why not? It was the '80s. Who knows? You know what I mean? But so this is where it's during this time that Dwayne actually says, "Hey, look, the easy solution, just sell the car." And it's like, even if it's broken, it's like, yeah, just say as is. The person can, check it out, go with the mechanic if they want before. And so he's like, all right, that's fine. I'll do it. And so he gets one of his students in the very next class to go to the mall, to that one spot in the parking lot where people always sell their cars, which that I don't remember being a thing. I mean, I guess it was, but I don't remember that being a thing at all.
It was obviously a thing in their town.
Right.
And he sends, I think his name is Doozler.
Yeah.
Doozler. And yeah, he goes and sells the car to Father Hargis.
Yeah.
Where we find that out at the end. And it makes you think, okay, Doozler's leaving school, missing a quiz that he jokes about, but he doesn't joke about it. It's kind of a funny little thing that he does. But wouldn't Father Hargis say, "Hey, Doozler, why are you not in school? Why are you selling cars at the mall?"
That's what I was wondering. Like, how did he not put two and two together there?
But a spoiler alert: Father Hargis says he's going to buy the car and he'll pick it up after Christmas.
Right, but
So
if there's anything wrong with it, that he'd fire Coach.
Yes, and there's going back to what we were saying is
Yep.
he was always going to threaten to fire him. So now Father Hargis is going to buy this car and he's going to use the money that he makes from the car to buy the organ and buy a new car for 10 people for whatever money he gets for this car. And I'm kind of trying to figure out how that works, but let's just pretend it's just the 10 of us. That's the way they could easily get a car.
I was thinking about, well, first of all, that's their only car. So how are they going to get to work? That was my first thought. Second thought, now they have to have a car payment.
Yes.
I mean, car payments are, that's no joke even back then. So it's like, what are you doing, Graham? It's, that's just a short-term solution here.
It was not a good solution.
It's not a good plan.
The better solution is you get a credit card and you pay for the transmission and try to pay that off. Or you obviously, Elizabeth would have understood, but
Right.
But this is TV, so we got to come
exactly.
We got to have the absurd situation.
Right.
So.
Yeah, exactly. But it turns out the girls, they wanted to help out, and so they got the boys at the auto shop to fix the car, and that was going to be their special gift for their dad. And of course, we get some more innuendo and
Well,
jokes.
Yes, and here's where it gets a little dirty and stuff, and kind of, but it's not. I mean,
yes,
this is where they started. They sexualized the girls, the high school girls.
right.
This is the 80s.
Not okay,
So
right?
yeah.
But, yeah.
And of course the guys did it because the girls were pretty, but of course these guys would have been obviously out of high school at this point. These are grown adult men, but pretty girls, and they say, "Sure, we'll do that." And then Sydney jokes that she's excited because the boys promised her that they would each get the girl a present, a Christmas goose.
A Christmas goose, yeah.
And of course that sounds dirtier than it's still dirty, but a goose to me was always just a pinch on the butt. But
yeah,
the innuendo is that it's more than that,
right?
But again, it's the 80s. Those are the jokes that
totally
you do.
Different time. Yep.
Yes. Yeah. But yeah, the girls got the car fixed.
Right.
They were pretty and they flirted with the guys.
Right. It turns out that father got the car checked out, and the mechanic said everything was fine. And so we get this meeting between Father Hargis and Graham, and he's kind of flabbergasted that the car worked, and he's trying to renege on the deal because he doesn't want to sell a broken car to his boss. And of course we get a nice little saying, I can't sell my car to my boss. Well, how about to a former boss? So there again is another threat of firing.
I'm going to fire you if it's wrong, which of course I don't
Seems
know.
like a lawsuit.
Yeah, it's not legal. But it's again, we just gotta let it happen.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, that's what it's television. So
but then we cut to another strange scene: Father and Dwayne talking. But Dwayne is teaching like a health class or something, and he gives a bit of hygiene advice, which this is just good advice for life, guys. So remember this always.
If it smells bad, wash it.
And I love the way he says it in there. He goes, "If it smells bad, wash it."
Yeah,
it's just like it's
so matter of factly.
Yeah, if it smells, clean it. And that's good advice. And I've used that on my daughter before. I'm like, just go clean yourself.
Yeah. But he's talking to Dwayne, and he's giving him his Christmas bonus. And Dwayne says, "Why don't you add this to the bonus that you were going to give Coach Lubbock?"
Mm-hmm.
And because of this he's got to spend all this money on this car, like $500 or $600. And so right away, the father is like, okay.
Well, he checks to see if he has a second car.
Right. Yeah, he
And he
does
goes,
say
no,
that.
no,
Yeah.
this is his only car, and it's a huge car repair bill. And Dwayne tells him it's the blown transmission, which
Right.
then, of course, Father Hargis is like, oh, now I have to go approach the coach.
Right. Exactly. So back at the house, we get Sherry, the little girl. Well, I guess the older of the younger kids. Anyway, and she's wearing like a homemade dress that is still relatively era appropriate for girls of her age, but it still is not very fashionable at all. And so it's there's a whole bit about taking pictures, and that's going to spoil your chance at running for office, and just fun little
Yeah,
jokes like that.
and she calls him something, and I couldn't tell because the audio is so bad. But she
Yeah,
calls him either a suck bag
that's what I wrote.
or a
Yeah.
stuff bag, and I couldn't quite tell. But either way, I'm like, I don't even understand what it means, but it was funny.
Yeah,
And so I think it was suck bag, and I'm
that's what
kind
I
of like,
wrote. Yeah,
I'm like, that's an interesting insult, and I've not heard that one, but I really the dynamic between those two kids was
right,
always really strong too. I mean, his brother and sister, he picks on her, she picks on him.
right,
But it was early on. This is early on in season 2. By the time you get to the end of season 2, it's all the high school girls, and these two characters kind of just like the other two kids who I don't even know their names. I don't even know if they ever mentioned their names.
I think they do. It's Harvey and I think Melissa,
I would
something
say
like that. Yeah,
you
yeah.
might be right. Who knows? But like at some point, they're just kind of pushed to the side.
It's like
And
Judy
yeah,
in Family Matters. Where did she go? You
yeah,
know.
she disappeared. One day, she just disappeared, and
But yeah, just kind of disappeared. And so they're talking about family photos, but then they sing a little song, and so the whole bit is that Santa, Graham comes to dress up as Santa, and he likes
yeah,
to pretend that he's Santa and hand out presents. That's like their family tradition.
yeah, and this is a part that I really liked. This is where Marie is always plays with Elizabeth and says, "Oh, do you know a little town of Bethlehem?"
Right.
And then Connie, who is so sick of it, and now because this is what they do every year, mocks, of course we know that song. Every year you play that song, and then Santa comes in on the second verse,
Yeah.
and like that's where the show was really great
Right.
because it was like that's how I would be with if my parents tried to do some kind of like fake Christmassy, like, oh, I wonder, can you do this or do that? I would call out on it. I would say, oh, come on.
Which is it's funny because like we would go Christmas caroling like around our block and
Mhm.
in our neighborhood. That was like our big family tradition. We would go Christmas caroling. And we always ended up towards the end, like the last half was always the same, like 3 songs. Like we would start off with all these different ones, and we would always devolve by the end into just singing like Silent Night, Jingle Bells, and like Feliz Navidad. Like that's it, just those 3. And so I kind of get where she's coming from because we would start off with all these, and we would rehearse and we'd practice, we'd get our harmonies all straight, and then as we got further into the night, it's just like, all right, let's go, Jingle Bells. Here it is. And then,
Yep.
all right, Silent Night, that's next. And
So after they start to sing the song, someone knocks on the door, but it's not Santa.
It's not Santa. It's Dwayne, who Coach had invited over for dinner.
Yeah.
Do you by any chance know, oh, little town of Bethlehem?
Oh, every year you ask if she knows it, and then Santa comes in on second verse.
Well, I don't know, Marie. It has been quite a while, but I'll give it a shot.
Oh, little town of Bethlehem, how still we see thee lie. Why, whatever could that be?
Well, whoever it is, come on in.
Oh.
Am I too early?
Oh, no. No, Dwayne, come on in.
And of course he does the whole, hey, where's Coach? And they're like, not in front of the kids, Cindy, not in front of the kids, because she doesn't want to blow it, but she doesn't understand.
And then you start to hear the ho 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 outside.
Okay, I got to talk about his beard. So I liked his I liked his Santa suit. The hat was interesting because it stood straight up. It didn't kind of hang over like most Santa hats do. But that beard was like one of the scraggliest, just weirdest beards I've ever seen. I actually kind of really like it, but at the same time, it's odd. Like looking at it compared to other Santa beards was just like, whoa, where did you get this? Because something's off about it.
I don't know. I just did a video on it, and I don't know if you've seen this episode.
Not yet.
Twilight Zone, Night of the Meek.
Night of the Meek.
Yes, that looks exactly like that beard. But of course, that beard is the beard is purposely made him look that way because he's a drunk in that episode.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
And so it really emphasizes that he's just a dirty Santa and he's drunk and stuff like that. But on Coach, it just looks bad. And I don't know if they were trying to go for, the family's poor, so he would have a poor Santa beard, which I guess is funny, but it looks terrible.
It really does, yeah.
It stands out to me more than almost anything in this episode. It's just like I'm like, oh God, that looks dirty and filthy.
Yes, exactly. It's just something about it is like, ooh, maybe you might want to give that a wash before you try that on again. Hey, maybe. If it smells bad, clean it. But he has like a whole routine where he's like, oh, I wonder if the cookies, they left me cookies out like they always do. And he gets really mad. He's like, where's the damn cookies?
He breaks character. Yeah,
he does several times. And of course, inside they start arguing amongst themselves, and immediately he kind of gets back into character, quasi, where he says, oh, I know I'm at the right house because everybody's fighting. So he immediately starts, asking, has everybody been good? And then he singles out Wendy because she's the flirtatious one, like Wendy.
And when he says yes.
Santa has no use for bad children or bad teenagers, especially those who spend all day thinking of boys and sex.
Yes.
It's like,
yes.
Oh.
And again, here's where that show
takes
it to, it's PG, but it's not Full House. I love you, Daddy. In 20 minutes, I did something and now we solved it. It's humor that goes over kids' heads, but the parents still find funny. And that's why this show worked so well. And that's why it stands out to me as one of the better 80s comedies.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Yeah, it's not kiddie. Like it doesn't bring it down to the kid level.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it endures. Anyway, and so I like how immediately Elizabeth's like, Santa, we don't have time for a sex lecture. And of course, Dwayne immediately says,
well, I kind of like to hear
it. Anyway, so he leaves the trash bag full of presents with him, walks out, and of course he comes downstairs and dressed I miss Santa again.
Yeah, you skipped the other time he breaks character. He goes out and he crashes into the garbage.
Oh yeah, he does.
And he says, "Who left the cans?" and realizes, "Oh, never mind." And so that was that. I really enjoyed that because again, that's what families do. Someone tries to pretend to do something and they just can't.
It doesn't always work.
Something happens, you get frustrated, and you're just like you lash out. But so he comes back down, as you were saying.
Right, so he comes back down. They're looking at the presents. Of course, the girls, the quote unquote pretty ones, have the shirts that say, like my dad is a madman, or
says,
things like
don't
that.
Touch my daughter.
Don't touch my daughter. Yeah.
And he gets a shirt that says, "Beware, daughter of a madman."
Daughter of a madman. That's what it is. Yeah.
And it looks like Connie gets one as well because she's holding one. She's holding a pink shirt, but you don't see it.
I didn't see what it said. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't. But it kind of also it looks like it looks like JD gets a football because he's tossing it with Dwayne, and
right.
Like Sherry gets like a doll or something like that. But it always goes back to, and here's one of my pet peeves about Christmas episodes. Christmas Eve is always the time that you see them celebrate. You
Right.
always see them open presents on Christmas Eve or have some kind of magical thing that happens on Christmas Eve. You never see Christmas Day.
Right.
Like, is this the presents? Are this all they got? You know, and if because
Well,
again,
but I don't think so, because he does have a line where he says something like, you know, and those aren't even like your biggest presents.
oh, you're right. Yes, yeah, you're right. But so maybe this is like their little tradition where they do a few things on Christmas Eve and then maybe something on Christmas Day. But yeah, it's still it
Yeah.
always drove me nuts because you never see. There's very few TV
Right.
episodes that actually ever are on Christmas Day.
Yeah, yeah. Like I can think of what was it?
Everybody
Who's the
loves
boss?
Raymond.
Who's the boss?
Well, yeah, I'm referencing something that's not 80s, but yeah.
But yeah, but you're right. Most of it happens like Christmas Eve or right before Christmas, and it's almost never on Christmas Day.
Yeah, and I don't
Yeah.
understand that. I've never understood that because it's like the few that do it are the ones to me that always stood out. Where I'm like, that's
Right.
what you want to see. You want to see them open presents. You want to see them enjoy the holiday
Right.
beyond
Right.
the leading up to it.
I guess it's because most of them, their conflict is about, well, no, I don't know. I have no idea. I was going to
I think
rationalize it some way and
it's
it doesn't work. So I don't know.
it's just a trope that seems to happen. And I think they also like the idea that Christmas Eve is magical and stuff, and that's
Right.
always what they're kind of hitting on. But
Right.
I don't know. Let's see him open some presents. You know, let's see
Yeah.
him do something and enjoy the Christmas day, and even if it's like 2 minute scene, you know, do it. Yeah.
Which it is in that Who's the Boss episode Requiem, especially it's the same thing.
I have to revisit that one. It's been a while, but I think I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah, we're about his dad, you know, it's like
Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, where they think he's keeping a woman. But so he comes down, everyone's with their presents, and he says, you know, Elizabeth, you know, what did Santa bring you? And you know, he tries to get her to play along. And so Dwayne kind of spoils it by saying, oh, is it that big thing outside that's wrapped with the big bow on it? And so she goes outside, opens it up, realizes it's the organ, and immediately just breaks down with gratitude. I mean, her heart is so just full of love and everything at that time. And that one really got I, you know, just their interaction. And this is where everything you're saying about their grown-ups relationship being more interesting, I think really comes to play here, because, you know, she knows that he's had to sacrifice to get this. And so she's really appreciative.
Yeah.
And
And it goes also to the point in the series, Coach is not a big Catholic guy, you know.
right. Yeah.
And so for him to like get her something that he you know, that is even though it's just an organ, it's meant for her to play her Catholic hymns and all that stuff. You know,
Right.
he giving her something that will help her, you know, her love of her religion. And that doesn't that was actually a really touching moment as well, because he's actually looking past like, oh, that Catholic crap that I have to deal with, you know, even though he works at a Catholic school and all that kind of stuff. But he's just not into it as much as she is.
Right. Totally. And so it's really, really meaningful. And that's when the girls say, you know, well, I think Santa brought something for you too, Daddy. And as a father of girls, this got me, this is where I started getting really emotional, where it's a note and it, you know, it turns out that everything's been fixed. And it's, you know, it says, basically as a way to thank you for all the nice things that you do for your daughters.
Yeah.
You know, the
It's
Santa and his elves
says,
had, you know, had
yeah,
your transmission fixed.
as your present this year, my elves have fixed the transmission in your car as a way to thank you for all the things you do for your daughters who forget to say thank you to Dad. And
Yes.
I only have one daughter, but I'm with you. Like,
yeah,
this was the most touching moment of the show. You know, you could see Coach kind of tear up almost, you know, and again, this was always the thing with the show. The girls were always boy crazy and doing things to stress him out, but in the end, they loved their family just as much.
Right.
And so it always it was the Full House moment, but in a kind of a funny way.
Right.
I don't want to say funny way, in a little bit
More
let's say,
roundabout way.
yeah, more roundabout way. Yeah. And because even they joke and Cindy starts to correct them when she hears, oh, the elves didn't do it, we did it, you know.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
they kind of like they make it a joke in there that makes you go, oh, Cindy, she's dumb again, you know.
But Father Hargis drops by.
Mm-hmm.
And he has a little chat with Coach saying, I don't want your car, you can keep it. And of course, he's over the moon now that he knows it's actually fixed,
Mm-hmm.
and that he's not actually selling it. So he's just relieved. He's not going to have to take out another car payment. So, but they invite Father in, and he sees the organ, and he says, "Oh, I haven't played one of those since seminary." And so they invite him to play, and he starts singing Red River Valley, and that's kind of how it ends, where they all just join in singing this non-Christmas song on Christmas Eve. But hey, whatever.
I don't even know that song now as a grown adult, and I definitely would have probably not known it in like 1988.
Right.
But I mean, I looked it up, and I've heard now. I've probably heard it before, but it sounded familiar. But I was like, they all started singing. They all start singing along, and it's got like the nice. I don't even know what's the term for it, but it's like the beat that he plays under it. It's just
yeah. Yeah, he does add like a drum track.
Yes, yeah.
To it, one of those fake synthesized drum tracks, and so it's a weird ending, but it actually kind of fits.
From this valley, they say you are going. Now hasten to maybe I'm you. Just remember the Red River Valley.
But that's the show. Yeah. So I don't know. I really like this one. I think this one's probably going into my Christmas canon now. I think it's going to be added to my yearly watch if I can squeeze it in.
You should. It's one of the it's the only way to keep this show alive. And hopefully when people hear this, they may go search for it on YouTube or something to watch it. If they don't remember it, I definitely encourage you to go find it. There's a couple YouTube channels. There's a YouTube channel. I can't remember his name, but he does. He basically deep dives these episodes too. And
nice.
He even during the pandemic, and I don't know if you saw this or not, they actually did a Zoom reunion.
Oh, okay.
The cast,
wow.
except for JR. They couldn't get him to join. He was unable to join. But everybody else.
He's a big time producer and director now. So
I think he was just But they all got together. They all talked about the show and they had some memories and stuff. It was just really great to see them, especially like the younger kids now. They're grown adults, and if you're a huge fan, if you were a fan of the show, I would go out and try to find things about it, and maybe one day, I don't think it's going to happen at this point, but maybe one day we might see a DVD release, or even at least stick it up on streaming, just so we can get some good versions of this. So
yeah, I know what you mean. It's like Newhart. That's another Newhart, Moonlighting, like all those. They're just fantastic shows that you can't unless you go out and buy them somewhere, like a physical copy. And even then with Moonlighting, that's kind of hard to find, but like you're pretty much just stuck with what you can find, scrounge around online. And so it would be nice to have a lot of these because they're fantastic shows. A lot of them are. So, but it does make me wonder, what would you say would be your happiest memory or moment with just the 10 of us?
So I talked about the one already. It was the theme song. The theme song was always something that I would probably sing all the time. I loved theme songs as a kid.
Heck
but
yeah.
Because we've already talked about it, I'm going to bring up the other thing. I was 13, and Jamie Luner, who plays Cindy on this show, was just somebody that I was just like, oh my gosh, there's a girl and I kind of like her.
Yeah,
I was
yes.
I was in that age range when girls were starting to become a thing, and I have to admit that Jamie Luner was one of my initial crushes on TV
Yep.
to
She's
watch.
gorgeous. Yep.
And you
She's
know,
still gorgeous right now. I don't
oh
know if you've seen
God,
her
yeah.
pictures.
When
Yeah.
you
Mhm.
watch those reunions, I think she's in her 50s now, but she still looks great.
Mhm.
And that would it goes back to me, sexualizing the girls, I guess, but I was 13 at the time, so
So it's okay. Yeah, yeah.
you
That's
know,
that's definitely much more appropriate than
yes, yeah,
than
but
studio executives doing it.
it was definitely something that I clearly remember going,
Right.
oh, this isn't Full House. This is a little different. So
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. That's good. For me, I remember just watching the reruns on USA like all the
Mhm.
time because they were just always on. So like on a Saturday and a Sunday, I remember going to my grandma's house and uh so my grandma would have a couple of TVs and so one would be on, there'd be like Matlock or Murder She Wrote or something like that. And then we'd go and we'd just turn the TV on if my cousins weren't there, because if they were there, we'd go play. But if they weren't, we would just sit in front of the TV and
Mhm.
just, put on something. And I just remember watching lots of just the 10 of us. So
Mhm.
yeah, this one, I think I just being with my brothers in my grandma's house watching was just one of those that it's kind of stuck with me. And so that definitely just, you know, gives me all the feels, all the fuzzies. But now we come to my favorite part of the show, which is a little segment I like to call Gag Me with the Spoon. So this is where we do our best impression of our least favorite part of the episode. As a guest, I'll let you go first, just kind of set up the scene, and then we'll go from there.
So this was tough because I there wasn't really anything that stood out to me as being horrible, and I
Right.
also was trying to figure out, well, what could I do as a voice as my impression of it. But
I understand. Yeah.
I think the role playing scene is probably, if I had to pick a scene, that would probably be my least favorite. Not because it's not funny, because
Mhm.
it's too long. Like it clocks in a little over 2.5 minutes, and two and a half
Oh, wow.
minutes in a comedy, half-hour comedy is just is a long time, and
Right.
they go back and forth, and so I'll do the impression of where they're pretending to tell Elizabeth about the car. So Dwayne goes, my least favorite scene goes like this. He goes, Elizabeth, the transmission is going to have to be fixed, and it's going to cost $550. Oh no, we're not going to have to take back all the children's gifts to pay for the car. Like, so after a while, like,
Good.
I don't know why they did the role play. I mean, it's
Well,
funny, but and I understand, but
yeah.
it's a bit much.
Well, and you're right. It does stretch out long because Dwayne kind of jokes around about it first.
Yes.
So first he gives him the kiss on the cheek. He's like, "I've been at work all day. I miss you." And then and then after that he says, "Elizabeth, what happened to your hair?" In
Yeah.
reference to the fact that Coach is bald. So that like those lines probably could have been cut, those jokes, and it would have been, I think, a more effective scene. But you're right. This was hard. The whole thing is funny. There are a few lines here and there that kind of stood out to me. The one I'm going with is when Graham has just come home. He's very frustrated because of the car situation. And so he and Elizabeth are talking. And the only reason I picked this scene was because I found it to be very 80s sitcom,
Mhm.
which, and to me, it didn't quite fit in with the rest of the actual episode. And so she basically says, hey, or he says the transmission's got to come out, and Elizabeth tells him, well, hey, it's just metal, no big deal. It's not like it's an organ or something. And he says, you know about the organ?
Yeah.
And he says, I mean, and he just, corrects himself. It's like, okay, that's come on. The rest of the episode was written way better. So, but no, you're right. It was good. But GI Joe taught us that knowing is half the battle. What do you think the other half is?
To sell the car yourself so you don't sell your broken down car to your boss.
There you go. That's good. That's good. That's definitely better than mine. I said if knowing is half the battle, the other half is just being good so your kids appreciate you and get you stuff.
Or have a savings account if you're going to have a.
That's definitely half of the battle right there.
Yeah.
Oh man, Joe, it's been so much fun talking with you. But what do you got coming up? Tell me about your show.
So I have a YouTube channel. I just started it this year, so I'm building an audience. Finding people who like to watch Christmas movies about Christmas throughout the year gets to be a bit tough. I'm hoping that now that we're getting closer, people will find me. But I run a YouTube channel called Christmas Aficionado. We celebrate Christmas pop culture, movies, and television all year long. Feature films, television specials, and even the Hallmark films, which I love. I analyze, I discuss, I rank them. I try to do more unique things than just saying what's good or what's bad. I try to do some fun things. I have a show called the Trope Count where I count all the different tropes in a Hallmark movie and try to determine which one has the most. Right now, there's a movie called Two Turtle Doves that has 49 tropes, which is huge. It has tons of them, meaning all the traditional things that a Hallmark Channel movie makes up. And then another show of Everything Christmas, which I was hoping to have done for this, but I don't have a good copy of the show. But I kind of retell the story of the show, and I point out everything Christmas in it, giving you sort of like some pop culture, like the pop-up videos from the 90s
Nice.
shows with facts and stuff. So search for me on YouTube, Christmas Aficionado. You can also go to just christmasaficionado.com. And aficionado is spelled Aficionado, because again, that's I chose a name that nobody knows how to spell. But I'm also I'm on Instagram at Christmas_aficionado and Facebook, which I have 2 followers because I just started it about a week ago. Christmas period aficionado. So look me up. Contact me. I have lots of good stuff. I'm hoping to have lots more by the end of the year. And I'm starting to partner with other people and other shows, and hopefully to start building an audience. And please subscribe. That's all I can. I subscribe and check it out.
Right on. Yeah, definitely go check it out. Trope Count is so fun.
Thank you.
so yeah, I'm excited to see where you go from here, man. I really am. But
I have a new trope count coming out. I'm hoping by next week. It's for a movie called A Very Merry Mix-Up, starring Alicia
that's
Witt.
a classic.
Yeah, it's from 2013.
Alicia Witt. Yeah.
I have to say there is some fun things in this movie that I'm going to make. I make fun of it, but I love them.
I hope you mentioned that she played Alia in Dune.
Of course. A trope is right there is that she was a former child star, because former child stars make up a good portion of Hallmark movies. So a character trope is former child star, Alicia Witt, Dune, and then Sybil, and
she was in Sybil.
She was in a number of different things. But check it out. Especially even if you don't like Hallmark channels, I kind of make fun of them because they're great, but they're ridiculous at the same time.
Yeah, I know. And I'm at the point where I love them, but I mostly for like just the atmosphere, the Christmas, so I'll just, I'll put one on and you kind of just don't even really pay attention to it. You're doing other things, but you get all the Christmas fuzzies, all the, just the emotion is there, everything. So it's like, you don't even have to really worry about it, because they're going to get together. But of course my mom would say, but I don't know how. I know how they're gonna get together, Bob.
There's well over 300 Hallmark Christmas movies, and I don't watch any of the ones during the rest of the year. I just watch the Christmas ones. I've watched every single one. They all get together at the end.
Yes, they do. Trope. Anyway, on that note, let me just say once again, thank you so much, Joe.
Thank you for having me.
And I'll end it with, Daddy, this is what Santa left for you. So check us out on our social media pages, Facebook and Instagram at Totally Rad Christmas, Twitter at Rad Christmas, or our Facebook group, Totally Rad Christmas Mall and Arcade, where you can make your voice known to us as well. We post anything and everything 80s or Christmas related. And if you're feeling like Elizabeth getting a new organ for Christmas, leave us a review on iTunes. It helps us reach more people and spread some rad holiday cheer. Now, don't forget to check out our merch shop on tpublic.com and our super dope website, totallyradchristmas.com, courtesy of Tis the Podcast Elf, Tom Crow. Get your butt out of here and have a Merry Christmas. Later, dudes.
Tuesday, light up your 4th with Who's the Boss? Then do you remember your first day of independence from school? Kevin recalls on the Wonder Years. And drop in on Roseanne. She's cooking for the 4th. After, Coach gets a little respect, very little, when he brings his team to TV's hottest night. Now stay tuned for 2020.